Welcome back to Proving God Without the Bible. This is video number 5, which means there were 4 videos prior to this one. In video 1, I made the claim that God is real, and we can make a very strong argument for His existence using reason, logic, and the evaluation of scientific data. In video 2, I gave you a rule and a tool with which to evaluate my claims. The rule was we had to agree that truth exists, and we can know truth. The tool was something called a logical argument. If you need more information on either of those, please go back to video number 2. In video 3, I gave you the first proof of God, which says that the universe had a beginning, and anything that has a beginning has a cause. I believe that cause to be God. In video 4, I gave you the second proof of God, which says that the universe not only pops into existence out of nothing, but it popped out finely tuned. And when you see complexity in design like that, you can infer a designer, and I believe that designer to be God. In this video, I gave you the third and final proof of God, which says that anytime you see complex design, you can infer a designer. Life shows extreme complexity in its design, therefore life was designed. Before I go into the complexity argument, I'd like to take you back 35 years ago. I was sitting in a comparative anatomy class working on a biology degree. And I was looking at the complexity of the inner ear. And inside your head, there's a flap of skin you call your eardrum. Behind that are 3 small bones. They attach to a snail shell shaped organ that has a fluid inside of it, and there's hair-like fibers that hang down in the fluid. When sound comes into your head, it shakes the eardrum back and forth, causes these 3 little bones to move, eventually causes these hair-like fibers to move inside this fluid, creates an electrical impulse, which travels up a highly specialized organ called a nerve, to another highly specialized organ called your brain. At this point in my life, I was probably close to an atheist or an agnostic. I was being taught evolution, that everything happened by random chance, and believe in it for the most part. But I looked at that complexity, and I knew that it could not have been created or produced by random chance. To give you another idea of what I'm talking about, or the complexity I'm talking about, if you walked into a breakfast nook in the morning, and on the table was a box of alphabets, and the letters were spilled on the table, what is the likelihood those letters would arrange to spell anything? Not very likely. Maybe a 2-letter word like it or at, but nothing of substance. But what would you think if in the middle of these letters there was a clearing, and there was a line of letters across the middle, and they spelled out the words, "Take out the garbage, Mom"? Would you believe that there was an intelligence in the arrangement of those letters, or that they just randomly arranged themselves that way? Of course you're going to assume that there was an intelligence, because you know those letters on their own have very little meaning. It's only when you arrange them in a highly specialized sequence that they produce something called information. The only known source of information within our universe is through an intelligence. Within our cells are millions of base pairs that make up the hereditary information within our cells called DNA. These base pairs on their own have very little meaning. But when you arrange them in a highly specialized sequence, they produce information. Information which produces life. Even ardent atheist Richard Dawkins will admit there is the equivalent of 1,000 encyclopedias worth of information within a single cell. This is not the equivalent of 1,000 encyclopedias worth of letters randomly spilled on our proverbial breakfast table. These are complete words, sentences, paragraphs, and books. An atheist will tell you this large amount, spectacular amount of information somehow arranged itself on its own. A theist or a God believer knows that the only known source of information within the universe is through an intelligence, and they believe that intelligence to be God. So let's summarize where we've been through these 3 proofs. We've seen that the universe had a beginning, and anything that has a beginning has a cause, and I believe that cause to be God. We saw that the universe not only popped into existence out of nothing, but popped out finely tuned. And when you see complexity like that, you can infer a designer or an intelligence behind it. And I believe that intelligence to be God. And we saw in this video that the complexity within life, within DNA, is so complex that it produces something called information. And information, the only known source of information within our universe is through an intelligence. And I believe that intelligence to be God. Each one of these arguments on their own is an extremely strong argument for God. All 3 of them together, I believe the argument is just overpowering. I would like to present you with another quote. Astronomer Fred Hoyle had his atheism shaken by the anthropic principle and the complexity he saw in life. Hoyle concluded a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. This is an atheist who had his atheism shaken because he saw a complexity that could not be explained by random chance. He saw a complexity that could only be explained through a supernatural cause, and I believe that supernatural cause to be God. So have I proven my case? Is the argument stronger for God than the argument against God? If you're so inclined, I would love to hear your comments, pro or con, on this website or at the email address which will show on the screen. If you did not believe in God before, but now you think you may believe in God based on this evidence, I would appreciate those comments and suggestions at the same 2 locations. And may the God I know to be real bless you in that search.